Senator Summers.
Good afternoon. Is it afternoon? Good morning still. How are you? Thank you for allowing me to testify this morning to the co-chairs and the distinguished members of the committee. I am here to lend my support for SB 11, the act concerning the authorization of a gaming facility in East Windsor. And I just, you have had an hour with my fellow Senator Famika, so I don't want to repeat everything that he has indicated, but I just would like to pause for a moment to think about the relationship that we have with this tribe. These tribes have really saved Eastern Connecticut in a time years ago when Electric Boat was at a downturn. And if it wasn't for them, I don't know what Eastern Connecticut would actually look like today. We have partnered with them. It's almost been like a marriage. And now we have an opportunity here, in my opinion, to do the right thing. They have come to us with what the needs are to maintain their workforce and for them to be competitive and to fight off a competitive advantage that's coming into a neighboring state. And we have an issue. Do we stay with the people that we've developed a relationship with, that we trust, that have contributed $8 billion to our economy, that are there every time a organization needs help in sponsorship, or do we go with the new shiny object that's promising things that are out and untenable really at this point? So I would like to say that the towns that I represent, some of the towns, nearly 60% of the people that live in those towns work at the casino. And this is not just a casino. I'd like to correct that for the record. This is a casino and entertainment destination. When I go there, I don't gamble. The only card game I know how to play is Go Fish, actually. And but you can go for entertainment, for malls, for restaurants. So there's much more than just the casino aspect of this. Eastern Connecticut is truly dependent on the success of these casinos, and quite frankly, so is the state of Connecticut. The second that this is put out for anyone else, as you have heard, we will lose the revenue of close to $250 million from the casinos. The federal government, or federal law, I should say, states that they need to get something for the payment that they make for the state of Connecticut. That's the deal we have. And what they're getting is exclusivity. And I think that needs to be honored, just like the relationship should be honored for over 20 years at this point. I'd like to point out that the competitor that's interested in possibly coming here just bought an $850 million casino in Yonkers, New York. I find it very difficult to believe that they would now own a casino in New York, own one in Springfield, and then go forward with putting yet another casino in Bridgeport. It just doesn't make sense to me, nor does it to the tribes. So I want to say I was really proud of the work that we did last session in a bipartisan manner, and I have personally witnessed firsthand the positive impacts that the tribes have had on many of the communities that I represent. To not go forward with this bill, I think, sets a bad precedent. It creates uncertainty for our workers, especially in southeastern Connecticut. And at a time when Connecticut is in a financial crisis, the citizens want to see progress. They don't want to see progress undone. And it's very important for us to keep that in perspective going forward. I'd also like to say that I know that there are some people that are just philosophically or morally against gambling, but that conversation is something we had 20 years ago. I say that train has sailed. And it's time now to look at the where we are and how we can help our current businesses, people that employ 9,300 residents of our state, how we can help them be competitive in this market. We would do that if this was Sikorsky. We just did that for Electric Boat. These are people that we also have had relationships with that are solid and long-lasting. As you know, the tribes are working to try to get this $300 million gambling site in East Windsor off the ground. It's Tribal Winds Casino, as you probably have seen many of the buttons today. They received the state approval for this in 2017, but it's been stalled by the never-ending drama at the Washington level and the U.S. Departments of Interior's inaction. SB 11 is a bipartisan bill. It would remove the requirement of the Department of Interior's approval for the East Windsor site or an operation. And it aims, again, which is critical to keep in mind, at jobs, 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 jobs. That's what we heard from our governor. Business development, retention, growth, and opportunity for those that without this particular casino, without our tribes, would not have that opportunity. And I will leave you with that on SB 11. On SB 17, this, again, you know what the bill does. I'm in full support of that. Something that Connecticut would benefit from this. We've had this great arrangement for the last 25 years, and I would just like to point out that I think it's important. One thing that has not been mentioned, I know you went through the surrounding towns and some of the other towns that would benefit from this particular agreement, but one of the things that really wasn't mentioned was the fact that upon financing or approval of this project, that the tribes are going to loan the state of Connecticut $30 million. That's not accounted for in this budget, so that would be considered additional revenue, and that would be an advance payment against their future payments to the state of Connecticut. And within 30 days of being authorized, the tribes would also be required to spend $1 million in advance for the first cost of regulating the facility. They also do contribute $300,000 to the Chronic Gamblers Treatment and Rehabilitation Account. And I don't want to go back to my district when I have 60% in some towns of people working in the casino. They're not working all on the casino floor, but they're working as somebody who's managing a restaurant, or they're working at the outlet, and they are contributing, and they will be contributing to the Family Leave Act that you all are interested in pursuing. So think about, if we lose those jobs, what's that going to do to that particular program? They are required to pay every bit of state law that we pass here. So I think that's very important to keep into consideration, and I urge you to move forward in a positive way on this bill, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Szydzinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Summers, for being here. Senate Bill 17, what's your vision of sports wagering in the state of Connecticut? Do you believe it should be limited to just the tribes, or do you feel opening it up to other operators would be appropriate or legal?
Again, I rely on the federal law that in order for the tribes to contribute to the state of Connecticut, unlike any other casino in the world, they get something for that. And for me, that's exclusivity. I would like to see it started with the tribes, and then we can have further conversations on how that works going down, in the future. But I think it should start with the tribes, personally.
Understood. And to the other bill, with the competitive casinos in Yonkers and Springfield, people have made it clear that there is a market, especially in the southwestern part of the state, for an additional casino or some casino expansion. Do you believe that there is enough business or enough financing, if you will, if there's enough of a market for additional casino expansion? And do you oppose the idea of an RFP, which would just simply obtain information on what parties are interested in expanding?
Okay, I think there was a few questions in there. I am not a casino marketing person that has the predictions for, when the market is saturated. But I can tell you, I cannot see MGM spending money on a casino in Bridgeport when they just purchased an $850 million casino that's not up and running, that has 1,200 people in it. That I don't see it. I would suggest, again, exclusivity. If we want to have a casino in Bridgeport, Connecticut, then let's go through the tribes and have the tribes negotiate something with the other parties. I am against putting an RFP out. The second you do that, you're going to lose every cent that's coming from these tribes through the state of Connecticut. It breaks the contract.
Thank you for answering the questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep. Before I get to Representative Fishbein, just to follow up on that point, Senator, you said the second that we put out an RFP, it would break the compact. Did I hear you correctly? Okay, your mic, please.
Yes, in my opinion, it depends what the RFP is. Is it just to go fishing, or is it to locate a casino in Bridgeport?
The under the proposed RFP bill, it's the exact same process that was afforded to the tribes in 2015, and at that point, there was no mention of breaking the compact. So I'm not sure where the disconnect lies. So we allowed for one process for the tribes in 2015 to go out and get these requests for proposals, and there was no legal argument stating that that was in violation of the compact and/or any threats to hold back any payments to the state of Connecticut. So under the competitive process, it's the exact same process, and I was wondering why you think there might be a difference.
Sure. Well, the difference is it's a competitive process versus a non-competitive process, and exclusivity means exclusivity. It does not mean competitive. So exclusive rights to something means you are the only one that has the rights for that. Competitive RFP means you are bidding against someone else who does not have those rights. So that's the clear difference for me.
Okay, I'm not so sure it's so clear, but nevertheless, thank you. Representative Fishbein, followed by Senator Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Senator. Thank you for your testimony. I'm just trying to, where Chairman Varengia left off, am I to understand that you are not in favor of competition and that you're more in favor of what I perceive to be a monopoly, or what you describe as exclusivity? Why is competition bad?
Competition is not bad, but if you sign an agreement or there's federal law that states that you can have all the competition you want, open it up, but you're not going to get one dime out of the tribes any longer because you're breaking the contract. The contract that they have with the state of Connecticut, federal law says, okay, you're giving the tribes exclusive rights to have a casino in the state of Connecticut, and in return for that exclusivity, they make payments to the state of Connecticut. I don't think you can have it both ways. I don't think you can say, we want to still get our $250 million every year from the tribes, but we're going to open it up and we're going to break the exclusivity. To me, those two things do not go hand in hand. So if this body decides they want to open it up to competition, I'm not against competition, but in this case, the tribes sitting behind me that employ 60% of the workers in my towns that have contributed to the state of Connecticut over $8 billion for years, that have been good partners to the state in a time starting when the state was desperate. Now we're going to say, well, I know you have exclusivity, and we want to continue to take your money that you're sending to the state of Connecticut every year, because where are we going to make up $250 million? But by the way, we're going to open it up to competition. Those two things, that's the disconnect for me. I don't think you can have it both ways. You have to choose one or the other.
So can you, I've read the MOUs, and I don't recall any portion that says that the state of Connecticut cannot inquire in the open marketplace as to what other or any bidders would bid to have gambling in Connecticut. The MOUs don't say that. Unless, please educate me.
From a philosophical standpoint, why would the state of Connecticut go out and ask somebody else to bid on something if they were not intent on moving forward? Again, is it a fishing expedition? And if we have an exclusive deal with the current tribes, why are we doing that? If I were them and I had an exclusive right to be the casino of Connecticut and the entertainment destination and the tourist destination of Connecticut, and you went and tried to solicit bids from someone else, that naturally, to me, would be a violation of the agreement that we have. It may not be stated in the MOU, and I don't have it in front of me but it is clearly a move by the person that you are in an agreement with to do something different and to look to have ulterior motives, so to speak. And that's exactly what we're seeing right here with MGM.
Okay, so if you're alleging that I'm in
Not you,
agreement
I'm
with-
saying in general, not you
Okay.
personally. But
So don't we owe it to the residents and taxpayers of the state of Connecticut to find out whether or not someone else out there is willing to pay us more than $250 instead of putting blinders on? Don't we owe them that? Because
there
it
is
doesn't
no
violate the
other
MOU.
casino in the world that is paying $250 million to a state.
And what harm does it bring to the residents in the state of Connecticut and the taxpayers to get that answer? Because you're saying we can't even ask that question. That's what you're saying.
You can ask any question you'd like.
Well, no. You've been saying, and you said to Chairman Ferengia that you're not in favor of an RFP because that would violate and we lose all this money. So I think we've established that the contract does not preclude that, and I think I owe a duty to the residents of the state of Connecticut to ask that question, to find out what is available out there. And you would agree with me also that the MOU that's in place, and you said to somebody's question that the discussion was had many years ago. The discussion that was had many years ago was tribal lands. We're talking about something totally different here. So, I'm open to the discussion about off-tribal lands because that discussion never was had until a few years ago, actually. You made a representation that 60% of the residents of your towns work at the casinos.
I said 60% of one of the towns that I represent. About
Okay.
60% of the people that live in that town are working at the casino.
Okay, what town is that?
That's Griswold, Connecticut.
Okay, and the population of Griswold?
I don't have the exact number, but I can get it to you.
Okay. And then, and I have no information about, MGM's intent or Wynn's intent, because we still haven't talked about, there's a Wynn casino in Boston that opened up in the last year or so that doesn't appear to have impacted, or it's within the reasonable past that has doesn't appear to have impacted this. But if the tribes are willing to put a casino in East Windsor to try and stem money from going to Springfield, isn't Bridgeport about the same distance from Yonkers as East Windsor is from the casinos? Why, if it makes sense for the casinos, for Foxwoods and Mohegan to do that, to stem money from going northerly, why would MGM not do that to stem money going easterly? Yeah.
As I said, I'm not the marketing person for the casino, so you'd have to ask them that. But I can tell you that you asked me, what is the state of Connecticut losing? We're losing revenue off of that could be coming to the state of Connecticut by delaying this. If we want to find out what somebody else would possibly pay the state of Connecticut, that to me is a fishing expedition, because if this group decides to go that way, then you're going to lose the revenue from the tribes, which is $250 million, whether you want to say that's part of the agreement or not. I can guarantee you the tribes are not going to pay the state of Connecticut on money when they don't have an exclusive any longer. And We're losing the money that we could have right now by having this casino open. That's what we're losing. And I have a potential of losing good paying jobs in my district when there's no other opportunities there. And I think that's significant. And I have a duty, I think, to my constituents to make sure that their jobs are as protected as they possibly can be. And I also think that we have a duty as the state of Connecticut to honor our agreements and to look at the businesses that have been good contributors to the state of Connecticut, that have worked with us, that, as I said, they employ nearly 9,300 people, if not more. And we have a history with them for 25 years. $8 billion that they have contributed to our state coffers, to all the surrounding towns, and yet we are wasting time, in my opinion, trying to find out what this one would give us or what that one would give us, in something that ultimately, if we were to move that way, is going to be the loss of $250 million in revenue to the state of Connecticut, because the tribes will not pay that. So, we just philosophically see it differently, and, that's all I can say. I can't tell you why. Maybe the tribes are financially astute and they wouldn't want to invest in a casino down in Bridgeport right now. I can't say to, fight off something in Yonkers, because maybe they have the marketing and demographics that show that that's not the place that they need to be concerned about. Maybe it is East Windsor to fight off the casino up in Massachusetts. And I can tell you, I do have numbers from what I call, the promises of MGM that have not been delivered yet. And, they promised $40 million in monthly revenues, but they're currently delivering less than half of that to the state of Massachusetts. They promised to create jobs, but they're talking about layoffs currently, less than 6 months of being open. So, we have an opportunity here to solidify a relationship that has been positive. And this is the whole conversation morally about gambling, to me, is off the table. That's something that the legislature allowed years ago. So we have an opportunity to solidify this relationship that has been developing over 25 years, that not only contributes just through gaming, but it is an entertainment destination, tourist dollars, the employers and the employees that work there, they have retirement packages. This is a good organization. Why are we risking it just to find out what else is out there? Why don't we empower and embrace the companies that we have here in the state of Connecticut? Maybe if we had done this years ago with other companies, we wouldn't see them leaving to go to places like Boston. We're doing bending over backwards for Electric Boat. If this wasn't a casino company, if this was a high-tech company, this would be a different conversation. I can guarantee it.
So we hear about the great things that the tribes have done, and you've never seen me say anything that the tribes have not contributed to our state. So that's, from my perspective, that has nothing to do with this, because it's almost like, well, they've given us $8 billion or whatever it is, and because we got that money, then we have to do the exclusive, which really just seems a little unseemly to me. But on the sports betting aspect, and I asked this question of Senator Formica also, if the state was getting no money, would you still be in favor of the sports betting? Or is it just the fact that the state is going to get money out of it?
For me, this is something that has been presented to the legislature. We all know that sports betting occurs. Everybody's got their little pool and betting on this one and that one. And, sports betting for me it's not one of my priorities. But I said I only know how to play Go Fish, and I don't even know who any of the sports teams are. But if something that came to us that is available in other states, it can provide, again, another opportunity for somebody who's visiting our area who wants to partake in that as entertainment or as part of their vacation stay here in Connecticut. I think it's something, or from their home if it's online. I think it's something that can be available, and it's something that the state of Connecticut can generate revenue from.
But is your support tied to the revenue Or, and my question was, if there was no revenue to the state and we just legalized it, would you still be in support of the concept?
I don't think the state legalizes anything unless it can get revenue, quite frankly.
No,
So-
we're talking about your testimony, your support of this bill. Is it based upon the revenue, or is it based upon that you just think sports, because it's going on in other states, that it should be legal here as well?
I think that if we have a company that has come to us that feels that they're that has an exclusive, that feels that they have a disadvantage by not being able to offer this, that yes, we should offer it.
Okay, so I still don't know whether the state component, so, which, I don't know what your position is with regard to that, but there's talk about the lottery running sports gambling. And you're of the position that the tribes should run it. I guess from some interpretation of the MOU is the way you understand it. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah, I don't think the Connecticut Lottery, quite frankly, should run anything. We've seen what has happened over the past few years with the Connecticut Lottery. So for me personally, I would like to see that taken out, nothing more added to the state's responsibility.
Okay, so what if another entity was created akin to the lottery, or we opened that up to an RFP? Would you be in favor of that?
I would not, because again, it comes back to exclusivity of gaming rights, of gambling and gaming rights. And for me, that lies with the tribes. I may be wrong, I'm not the Attorney General, but I think that what we have and our relationship and the exclusive needs to be honored.
So if the lottery offered us more than the tribes were offering, you would still go with the tribes?
When you have an exclusive agreement with someone, just because someone's prettier or somebody can offer you more doesn't mean you break the exclusive. You honor your agreement.
And I think the distinction between sports betting and, let's say, poker is, the way our law looks at it, is sports betting is a game of skill, whereas poker's a game of chance. Is it your position that the MOU deals with games of skill as well as games of chance?
Well, I bet that poker players that are professional poker players probably think it's a game of skill, not a game of chance. So, and again, I'm not somebody who plays poker or bets on sports, so that's a question I probably can't answer.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, because the MOU doesn't mention sports gaming at all. So, but you're of the position that the MOU addresses, or at least encompasses, sports betting. That's your position.
That's my opinion, but again, I'm not an attorney, and although I've dealt with a lot of them, I believe that if we want to start sports betting here in the state of Connecticut, whether it's online, in person, that we need to honor our exclusive. We need to allow the tribes to get it off the ground. If we want to come back at another time and we can talk to them about something going forward, then let's do that. But let's get it going, and let's start to generate some revenue for the state of Connecticut.
So from your perspective, if I'm sports betting in my office on the internet, that, has nothing at all to do with tribal lands or property owned by the tribes, they should get a cut of that?
I would hope you wouldn't be doing that on state time.
No. We're talking about my private office.
Okay.
But I was going to say my living room, and I probably should have, but
I'm just kidding.
I know,
I'm
I know.
trying to lighten the mood here. Yes, I think that if we enter into an exclusive, again, I had exclusive agreements for my biotech company. I had the exclusive rights to manufacture a product for J&J that went into the brain and the liver. I can't just say, geez, I'd really like to, manufacture that product and give it to another company because they're going to pay me more. I signed the agreement I entered into good faith. They have paid me on time, and you can't just break it. And so for me, gaming, gambling, whether you're betting on whether we're going to have a budget on time, or you're betting on a sports team, or you're playing Go Fish, or whatever the games are, it's all the same. And I think that the tribes, they are the ones that should have the exclusive. If we don't want to have an exclusive, then fine, we won't have one. But the state of Connecticut will lose the money. That's. I see it. There's no gray there for me, in case you haven't noticed. But
Okay, thank you, Senator. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Senator Austin, followed by Representative Moran.
Thank you very much, Senator, for your astute testimony today and your very clear conviction to the people in your district. So while Representative Fishbein was talking with you, I looked up Griswold. So there are 12,000 people there. I knew you were going to be, I knew you knew it. So I just wanted to get from you, how many workers, you talked about workers that have been hired by the tribal nations to support the entertainment industry that makes up the two gaming institutions. How many workers does MGM have here in Connecticut?
I believe it's 0 except for the lobbyists.
So they've
If you
hired
count them, it's
they've hired a ton of lobbyists to
Yes.
change public policy.
absolutely.
Oh, thank you. And in your opinion, the compact that we have with the two tribal nations is sacrosanct and should be honored?
Yes, it is. A deal is a deal.
Thank you. And last year, when we voted on something, did the tribal nations spend their own money to start tribal winds to get it ready for construction?
Yes, I believe that they. I believe that they demolished the building and started to get going. I know there was a groundbreaking ceremony, and they've invested obviously a lot of time. And think about the message that this is sending the people that work there. You know,
Right.
Your job is safe. We're going to make sure that we have an opportunity, if we lose market share, to have you travel to this other facility so you can keep your job. And the folks that are sitting behind me, I'm sure some of them have an opportunity to work at this East Windsor facility, and yet this legislature is still having the same conversation, and their uncertainty and anxiety as to whether they're going to have a job or not, you know, that's something that you really can't put a price tag on, and I don't think it's really fair to do to people, quite frankly.
And my last question, because Senator Formica and I delved into the history of the tribal nations and the compact that we have, the state of Connecticut has with them. You said something in your testimony when Representative Fishbein was questioning you, and you said that if this was a different kind of company, we would not be having this conversation. So you and I represent an area that does a lot with the defense industry. We've given money to Pratt, we've given money to Sikorsky, gave some money to Electric Boat. Would you entertain Newport News coming up here to go into another port on our beautiful river and work in direct competition to Electric Boat?
Are you asking me would I put an RFP out to see what it would take to create another state-of-the-art shipyard?
Yes, I am.
Just to do it? Because I want to find out what they would pay the state of Connecticut?
Correct.
Absolutely not.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.